How's it going, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's movie, we're going to be talking about The Call of the Wild. Based on the book of the same name by Jack London, Call of the Wild stars Harrison Ford and is directed by Chris Saunders. As the newest rookie on a mail delivery dog sled team, a dog named Buck experiences the adventure of a lifetime as he ultimately finds his proper place in the world. When this film was announced, I was pretty excited for it despite not knowing a whole lot about the novel, and I wanted to go see it in theaters, but I never got around to watching it at the time, and with this quarantine, that prevented me from watching it entirely. I eventually bought it on Vudu, and it was kind of just sitting in my collection for a while, but I never got around to watching it until recently. I always enjoy a dog film, and even when some of them can be pretty cheesy. But when it comes to Call of the Wild, it definitely stood out, taking the approach of an action-adventure-like film. And to be honest, The Call of the Wild is a really good film. A story about a dog that goes on a journey through the wild, eventually discovering where he truly belongs, is a very interesting concept, and I really enjoyed the way it was told here. Along with the inclusion of Harrison Ford, made the story even better, and I didn't think that I would see such a dedicated performance from him with a movie like this. I only say that seeing how it's weird that Harrison Ford has a history of choosing films with furry companions involved. The first half of this film spends a lot of time establishing Buck and his personality, while also showing some amazing action sequences, and the second half of this film is mainly based on character and takes a little bit more of a dramatic approach. And where I thought this movie would be balancing out the humans and dogs, The Call of the Wild is definitely Buck's story. What I can appreciate about that is how the film didn't make it so the animals have normal human voices and instead just went with barks. As someone who likes films that take the approach of no dialogue, it was nice to see the dogs interacting with only their actions, emotions, and, well, barks instead of human voices, and I know that's a bit of a weird thought. Watching the first half of the film really made me think about the Lion King remake and how it could have benefited from telling the story in a new way. The animals already look realistic for a start, but that film could have taken the opportunity to tell the same story, but have the animals act naturally rather than have them repeat the original script beat for beat. All the same elements would have been there to make it recognizable, but it certainly would have made it stand out as a unique and new take on a classic story. But you know, Disney, they don't care about new ideas and innovation, they just care about money and nostalgia. But I digress. Like I said, I also really enjoyed Harrison Ford in this movie, and I was surprised to see him give a dedicated performance in a film like this. Knowing that he hated being in Star Wars along with a big walking carpet as a companion, I could only think about him having flashbacks to those days whenever he was on screen. But he genuinely looked like he was having a fun time in this movie, and he did a really great job in delivering some of those emotional and funny moments. But I've been rambling too much about certain things in this movie, and I know you've been waiting for me to talk about this one thing, so I'll go ahead and ask Garrison Ford. Harrison, how was it like working with a dog in this film?
No, there's no dog.
Oh. So yeah, The Call of the Wild worked with a 100% CGI dog. Not only that, but every other animal in this film was made from CGI. Not a single real animal was used for film, which was an odd choice. I remember when the trailer was first released, and I can remember it getting so much criticism for Buck being all CGI, and he definitely looked very out of place to say the least. And the first time I watched this film, I didn't really have much of a problem with the CGI, and I kind of let it slip under the radar for me because I was so focused on the story. However, watching it a second time probably wasn't the best idea because it definitely got more and more distracting, especially knowing that every animal was CGI. It's really odd too, considering that even when there's a scene of the dog just sitting around and being placed in a safe setting, it still isn't real. I can understand why they decided to make the dog all CGI because there's so many dangerous events that take place in this movie, and it probably would have shifted away too much from the book if they took it all out. But I can't imagine any dog going through what Buck goes through in this movie. There's moments when Buck has to go up against a CGI bear, there's a moment where he has to fall through a frozen river, there's a moment where he has to jump a dude with a gun. I mean, yeah, that's all very dangerous stuff, and I'm glad to see they didn't put any dogs in harm. However, the biggest problem with having a fully CGI dog is that a lot of the times when he's not in a dangerous situation and he's acting like a normal dog, a lot of the movements can look very cartoony, as well as the facial expressions, and it can just look very fake at times. Sure, the lions in The Lion King looked realistic, but we all know that cats are much harder to read when it comes to facial expressions rather than dogs. You can tell when a dog looks happy, sad, or when they're angry as hell, But in this movie, some of the facial expressions look very, very huge, a little too huge, and it seems like the dogs are more fitting in a fully CGI film rather than a live action film. There's even moments when Buck is walking in front of a group of people and they end up looking, but all I'm thinking about is if the people are staring at a wad of air or not. There's even a scene in the movie where Ford isn't even staring at the dog, and it's during one of the more emotional scenes in the film, and I kept on thinking to myself, Harrison, the dog's not out in the distance, he's right in front of you. Look down.
2 days.
Look down. Harrison. And while I'm not for putting a dog in a dangerous situation just for a movie, some of the scenes can feel very empty at times because the dog isn't there, and you feel like there's no stakes involved. A recent film that also has dogs mushing in the Yukon is Togo, where they actually use real dogs. The dogs had some dangerous situations they were in, and for the movie, it felt much more immersive and suspenseful. With some really well-trained dogs and the performance of Willem Dafoe, I really felt the connection that he had with them, especially Togo. If you haven't checked out the film, it's on Disney+, and it's definitely worth the watch. As for the film, I checked out the bonus features, and oh boy, they're incredibly revealing, and made my thoughts for the film even more awkward. Luckily, all the actors and their performances, especially Harrison Ford, definitely made the interactions feel genuine. It really sucks that the CGI dog was incorporated in this film, because if they decided to take the approach of real animals, it would have made the story a million times better. It's a shame that I'm even saying that, because The Call of the Wild is a really, really good film. I love how it tells the story, and Buck's journey is very exciting and emotional from start to finish. The environment and use of sets are visually stunning and make for some amazing shots, and the performances are really well done. Out of all the things that people complain about in this movie, they say that the dog is the biggest problem, and the consensus on Rotten Tomatoes tends to agree and says that this is the only glaring issue. And honestly, from what I understand, this is a very faithful adaptation of its source material. If you haven't checked out this film and don't mind the CGI dog, I would highly recommend giving it a watch, and even if you can't overlook the CGI, watch the movie for the story. I definitely care a lot more for the story, and Buck can look okay at times, but if the CGI looked a little bit more realistic, or if they went ahead with real animals, I probably would have given this film an 8 out of 10, maybe even a 9. But where it stands, I'm gonna go ahead and give The Call of the Wild 7 out of 10 St. Bernard dogs.
Became his own master before he heard the call.
You know, I should have just titled this video Call of the Wild, complaining about the dog, because that's pretty much all it was. But either way, I still enjoyed this film. But I'd like to know what you guys think of Call of the Wild. Do you love it? Hate it? Not care to watch it? I'd love to know in the comments below. And if you made it this far in the video, I'd appreciate it if you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more future content just like this. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this review. Look forward to more very soon. And until the next one, you guys, I'll see you later.